Welcome, dear readers, to Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay, and remember, we only judge a book by its cover.
And we find ourselves once more amid the, not exactly towering, but decently high stacks of not just my library, but the ever-growing village of Librorium.
Yes, I was wondering about that.
Yes, what were you wondering about, Kay?
Mostly the guardhouse and the red and white striped pole, which comes down across the the corridors and...
the barrier.
Yes, the barrier, that's what I was looking for.
Well, as you recall, the original start of Librorium was a book fort.
Yes.
As a means of defending the library's precious things, namely the books, I guess, from enemies, unspecified enemies of the library. And as you recall, I kind of lost control over my constructing ambitions and just sort of kept going. So once you named this little village, by the way, that I've been building, Librorium, out of the stacks and stacks and stacks and books of the library, which is now big enough to actually have a library inside it.
Okay, so what I'm really curious about is how did you convince Tristan to stand there and man the barrier?
That actually wasn't as hard as you might think. So to catch everybody up on the unnecessary lore, Tristan is the name wielded by a threesome of raccoons who have in the past dressed up in an overcoat and impersonated both myself and my beloved co-host Kay. And
they were the other one, I believe. Yes.
And neither of us really noticed those little scamps were very, very good.
Well, I think it was the food washing that gave them away in the end, if I recall correctly.
Every time.
Yeah.
But so I sort of figured out, why would they have done that? Why would they have left their comfortable dens and each other's company, who they very much enjoy, in order to impersonate us on the podcast? And I realized that they maybe have height envy.
Oh, okay.
Right? Hence the standing on top of each other and trying to reach high, and they probably rotate who gets to be on top and look out over everyone.
That explains why they have the area of the barrier kind of has this low archway that everybody has to duck underneath.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah.
So because I'm building Librorium out of and inside your library, the space is a bit of an issue.
Yes.
Yeah, no. Everything's a little bit smaller than normal, and they kind of like that.
I just found it a little bit vexing that they refused me entry at first. And first they demanded to see my library card, which I of course have. But
it's all for the security.
That wasn't enough.
You should appreciate that.
But do believe they were trying to solicit a bribe from me.
They are still 3 raccoons, okay? I don't know what to tell you.
Okay. Well, I did the opposite. I threatened to cut their nut ration, and that worked.
You threatened to cut their nuts?
No.
That's an awful thing to threaten someone with.
They're rations, Kaki.
Well, we'll see how that turns out, because you're just in time for the mayoral elections of Librorium. Now, we've recently been through a previous election cycle, which did not go very well for old Kaki.
Okay.
But I'm thinking this one will go better, because there is only one eligible candidate.
Yes or no?
And there is only one voter. Well, in order to become the mayor of Librorium, you have to be a full-time resident.
So, one man, one vote.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good. Much like the partition in Terry Pratchett's Discworld. So I cast my vote just as you entered, and I'm about to do the counting. So I'm very excited.
Hang on, don't go too fast. I think you're doing a little bit of disenfranchising here. What about Tristan?
Oh, fuck, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yes, there is more than just the one ballot in there. Oh, fuck, Kay.
Yes?
What's going to... Well, okay.
Well, let's see.
This is a democracy, so let's open it up.
Looks like there's 4 ballots in there.
Okay, let's find out. Ooh, I'm a little nervous about this now.
Okay.
So I'm going to reach in, and here's the first one. Now, these are all anonymous.
Yes.
I do recognize my own handwriting, though, and I did misspell Kaki, so that's
an invalid ballot.
That's Kak, so
that doesn't count. Yeah.
No, so that's not going to be me. And this one says Stan, that one says Stan, and the other one says Stan. They voted for each other, didn't they? Oh,
yes,
God.
but it's a draw. I mean, this is Stan, that one's Stan, and this one's Stan. So
yes, but they could all be for the same person. And,
no,
and they all.
Yeah, you can tell. It's different Stans.
Wait, how can you tell?
By the handwriting.
It's all just little chicken scratches with their adorable little paws. Okay.
Yes.
No, this is actually really good. May I invite you to be an independent review board for the... Wow, what a great literary review podcast we're doing here, by the way.
Yes.
The Democratic Review Board for this election. Now,
I will take this under consideration.
I do want a petition that I clearly did mean to write Kaki.
Very well.
But my pen may have run out of ink.
Okay, but it's an anonymous ballot, so this could have been anybody.
No, that is true. Okay, so while you're doing that... Okay, well, maybe I can see if I can give myself a quick name change to either Stan or Kak.
We could also go and review a book.
Yeah, that seems much more sensible. There's a book and we're going to review it, and we've got the cover right here. And if you look down at your podcasting device, you should be seeing the cover of today's book.
Man Kzin Wars 10, 11.
Xi, yeah,
Xi,
or however you want to.
Xi.
Well, there are languages in which what we call the X is a language that.
Yeah.
Oh, is it one of the glottal clicks as well?
Probably not. I don't think lions do that. So
they can do whatever they want.
Well,
the
yes,
big old lions.
you can do that if you're 3.5 meters tall, like this one is.
Yes, 8 feet of death.
Yes, let's have a look at the cover.
I'm so excited, Kay.
We have a hunky lion with a curved, somewhat impractical sword, I would say. Cause it's like,
yes, it is one of those exciting like space fantasy swords.
Yeah, it's got like a scimitar, but it's got like a little bit sticking out. It reminds me of something that I won't talk about on a public podcast.
Oh, I see.
You see what I mean? Yeah. Totally. Yeah. So big lion, beautiful dark mane, which means he's like undefeated in battle.
Oh, there is something about that. How does it go?
Yeah, usually the darker a lion's mane is and the fuller is, so it's the longer that he's been undefeated in battle. And apparently getting fought and kicked out does a major testosterone shift in them. And their manes tend to fall out and go scraggly.
Oh, yeah, like a manifestation of shame.
Yeah, pretty much.
No shame to be detected in this giant kitty man. He's full of bluster.
Does he have claw prosthetics, or is that just like...
It does look a bit like it.
Maybe armoured claws. Yeah, let's go with that. Big old honky rat tail, which has always been a peculiarity about the
Yes,
Kzinti.
Because this is a Kzinti
line.
From
they're called Kzinti, but
Kzinti.
Yeah.
One of them's a plural, and one of them's a singular.
The Kzinti is the species, a Kzin.
Yeah, so he's a Kzin.
He is yes, I suppose so. Yeah, you're right. And we have
a Kzintosh specifically.
Ooh,
that's the male.
Kzintosh. Oh, okay. That I did not know.
Yeah.
And we've got a hunky, blonde-haired youth man.
A young man, a tow-headed...
Who's wearing some... I want to say galoshes, but that's not what they're called, is it?
I see what you mean. They're pretty savage kicks. Like they go all the way up to the knee.
And by the looks of it, nothing else.
Yeah, he's just wearing his... gravity pumps.
Oh, that's it.
And nothing else, and wielding what looks like a giant space gun.
It is a very giant space gun.
I like the design of it. It's really sleek. It's got the sort of sideways handle.
It's actually in the unwieldy class of weapons.
Yes.
Which is it's kind of supposed to be mounted, but like, real men hand carry mounted weapons, like, painless from...
Real men don't do it mounted.
I want to say Platoon, but that's not the one. It's the other one.
Full Metal Jacket.
No, the other one. Predator.
No, God.
Predator.
Okay.
It started with a P and it had aliens in it, so it's like Platoon, Alien, Predator, It's
Platoon, just to be clear, didn't really have aliens.
But yeah, so big gun, which looks like might be meant to be mounted, but he's holding with a...
That's not the only thing that's meant to be mounted.
Yes, the cover is decent, only by the artist's skill.
Yes, an artist, by the way, who deserves some mention, because... So this is part of the Man Kzin Wars series... a series of books derived from Larry Niven's Ring World. Yeah.
Is it from the Ring World?
Actually, no. The Kzin precede Ring World.
There's
the Warriors.
The original book is called Man Kzin Wars.
What I understand happened was Larry Niven didn't really feel competent to write a war book.
Yeah.
A book about war. Like, that's not his jam. But this period in the fictional history of his known universe fictions was quite popular. There was a lot of demand, and there was some interest from other writers to sort of play in that space. So he opened that area of his history up as a shared history.
And everybody else started writing. Speaking of which, actually about shared,
yes.
The uniqueness about this cover is that it was voted on by the public on the internet.
Oh my God, yes, that's right.
I completely forgot to mention that.
That's right. No, this is not the first election we've done during this. That must have been why election was on our mind.
I guess it must have been.
Our humble podcast has been circling the singularity of the Man Kzin Wars books since its very inception.
Many of them have lovely covers, and usually depicting felines in various poses with either titillating or brandishing big guns, or sometimes even both.
Yes. And if our long-time listeners surely know that if there's one thing that we keep circling back on here, it's hunky cat men in space.
I'm all for that.
Right? And so there's this nearly endless series of books of which we have never reviewed a single one. So we thought it was so important that we put a poll out on Twitter. We shortlisted it down to the 4 most titillating ones, and yeah, it was a very close race.
My personal favorite would have been Treasure Planet, because that was just like swashbuckling cats and cabin boys, and oh my,
it did look fantastic. But hey, the democratic process has spoken, and we must. And the cover, which is how we got here, all of the Man-Kzin Wars books were covered by Stephen Hickman, who I guess is like the modern Lancelot Worthington II, our favourite cover artist.
Famous cover artist, yes.
And he's been at it for ages. Like, the latest Man-Kzin Wars book came out this year.
Oh, wow. They're still going.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember this from back in the late 80s, early 90s, that I was already going like, wow, they wrote another one. Yeah. It kept going. And for a moment there, I thought this picture was actually a little bit indecent, but it turns out it's an elbow and not part of the Kzin. So
no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
He's got a lovely shape of the man's glutes there. So yeah, practical combat outfit, but you know, it's good for the eye.
Well, yeah, definitely, and it's showing some of the integration of this young man with his Kzinti compatriot, in that he's embraced the tradition of stealth nudity.
Not to be confused with armored nudity.
No, although he does have the gravity pumps, which do sort of count as, like, I believe this is typically a trope for like female fantasy warrior characters,
like the less is more thing. Although it also applies to men in the more traditional martial arts movies. You know, it's like stripping off your shirt and like down to bare chest, and now you're impossible to hit with machine guns. And so it's like it comes up in other places.
Yeah, all right. So maybe it's defensive nudity.
That's the one.
To catch our readers up on where we are in the series now, the Man-Kzin Wars were established as a series of conflicts in Larry Niven's Ring World, which is of course where all these novelists have gotten their inspiration from, examining like this is the 11th Man-Kzin War.
Yes. Although over time it's turned from the man and the Kzin fighting each other to, I believe now that the humanity is the Kzin's last bastion
and
of allies.
Only ally, yes, yeah. So in the history, I thought it was very interesting. The book had a rather thick prependix, which is an unusual way to do things. It had almost an encyclopedic section at the front, which
it happens.
I really enjoyed.
I've seen other writers do that when they start off with a timeline. You know, like this book takes 10,000 years in the future, and like here's a rough timeline of what happened between the world as you know it and
yes. Previously in the universe.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not unused. I mean, Hamilton has done it. I think that Stevenson has done similar things.
Yeah, that's helpful.
It's not unusual.
So, first contact between humanity and Kzin was a bit of a disaster for humanity, because the Kzin themselves, as an Iron Age species, were invaded by aliens against whom they rebelled, seized their technology, and off they went into space on their own program of conquest under the Mine Now doctrine.
No,
and one of their very first conquests was Earth.
Yeah, I rubbed up against it, so it's mine now.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just happened to pass it, which seemed to be one of their more successful campaigns. They were in fact hoping it would be their second successful campaign. Out of their many attempts to make interstellar war, you see, they only had one previous success, as they called it, and that was the seizure of a planet that they call Tribute, and which everybody else in the galaxy calls a garbage planet.
Ah, yes.
So they put their flag on there, uncontested, and they consider this under the Mine Now doctrine. Yeah, Mine Now, and they also believe that now there's a whole host of species out there in the galaxy recognizing their supremacy, regularly depositing tributes on the planet.
I don't think they've done much with it, but
they've organized it into neat piles, which the rest of the galaxy really appreciates.
Oh yeah, one of those conflicts that both sides profit from.
Yep, that's where they've got most of their armada, certainly most of their space technology comes from.
It's kind of like the space Bangladesh, where other civilizations dump their ships after they are done with them. They run them aground there in order to be taken apart. And the Kzinti go like, oh great, like more tribute, and like we'll strip some more technology out of these ships and like use that in our own conquest.
Yes, exactly.
And Earth was still pretty backwards at the time on the galactic scale.
Oh yeah. We had a very humble space program, so we were quickly overrun by these Kzinti. Now they're an interesting culture, aren't they? Because they're what's known as a crypto matriarchy, where where, because of the pattern of a gender distribution at birth, males outnumber females 10,000 to 1.
That's quite a lot.
That is a very, very lot.
Yeah, you need to do something with all those excess males to
yes.
prevent social problems.
It's even known as the exasperation is the official term, because they're just so few of them, and you can just barely keep this empire together, and they've got to give them something to do, because otherwise they'll just go nuts. They tend to be the more aggressive buffoons who, in times of peace or after a significant defeat, when the ratio is a bit more balanced, the civilization can actually thrive. But then reproduction does its thing. They have a glut of males again.
Within half a generation, it's all gone again.
But they were hoping that maybe like conquering Earth would solve all this. But even primitive, barely spacefaring Earth was able to repel the Kzinti because of their sneaky, almost mystical technique that was completely unknown to the Kzinti.
The belly rub.
Coordination. Yeah, it seems obvious to us, but the idea of like telling someone else on your team what you're about to do, and asking what they're going to do, completely baffling the Kzinti. They considered it like some kind of psychic power that they don't have.
Oh well, it was assumed to be hive mind is what they thought that the humans had at first, but it seems to know that they know exactly what the other ones are going to do, and it's called planning, bitch.
Also radios.
And also radios, it helps a lot.
Having been soundly, like consistently defeated by the humans, the Kzinti, having learned that when you are defeated, you give them tribute, they deorbited some of their spacecraft onto the Earth. Technically, their most successful assault, certainly the most damaging.
Especially Buenos Aires was hit very hard.
Why is it always Buenos Aires? I mean, it's like a shit magnet for like anything from space.
Anything comes from space, it hits Buenos Aires. I don't know what it is with that.
Hey, but they got new spaceships out of it, and off humanity went into space, doing much better than the Kzinti in integrating
it's
with
the whole
intergalactic
coordination
society.
type thing.
But they do owe the Kzinreti exasperation a lot of their current success and status, and so they are pretty much the Kzinti's only ally.
So after another period of breeding, it's time for another war, basically.
War number 11.
They've got, the past ones have not been particularly successful, mainly because the Kzin have this habit of picking out enemies which are a few sizes above their means.
Yes, like I remember this from Larry Niven, that the Kzin feel that there's no honor to be had in a battle that you know you can win.
Therefore, we only pick stronger enemies. Yep. So when they hear about an enemy which hasn't been defeated in over 100 years by anybody, they go like, okay, that's us then.
Them's the ones.
We're off there. Of course, they're kind of missing a few details, but we get to that point later.
Yes.
The civilization we're talking about here, they're known as the Rattle.
The Rattle, yeah. That sort of rang a little bell. I couldn't quite place it at the time.
I'm sure that as you got a little bit further into the book, it all became evident.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it did. I'll be reminded of how obvious it seemed to me sooner or later.
Where it turns out that the reason that they hadn't been defeated for the last 100 years is because they had been at peace for the last 100 years.
A concept completely alien to the Kzin.
Turns out that about 100 years ago, the Rattle were unified under the rule of King Brock the Last.
That's a regal name, isn't it? Brock.
Yeah, it is.
King Brock, yeah.
Who was fed up with the fact that his own species was so violent and warlike and constantly infighting on each other, a little bit like Kzin, except a little more inward-facing, that he decided to unify his own planet. And after conquering it Genghis Khan style, he insisted an entirely new policy. He eradicated the old language, and he instilled a new one, which had the peculiarity that it is impossible to insult someone in it, and there's never a mention of violence in the language.
That seemed a little far-fetched to me. With great respect to the authors, whom we haven't named yet, by the way, this was a team effort by Hal Colbatch, Matthew Joseph Harrington, and Larry Niven. Yeah. Like, I'm fine with Sexy Space Cat. I mean, I'm really fine with Sexy Space Cat. But the idea of having a language where you can't insult someone, that just doesn't fly. And that's because I have British family, specifically Northern Irish.
Yeah.
And if you've ever had a Northern Irish woman call you dear or love or sweetheart, you know that can mean a lot of different things. They can mean a lot of things.
Yes, I suppose so.
And there is no swear word in our vocabulary that is as savage as darling can be. So to imagine that you can create a language where this isn't possible,
it's science fiction.
Just exactly. Suspend our disbelief.
So yes,
like, hey buddy,
these Rattle, they're fierce, they're huge. They'll put a Kzin to shame with size. They're like at least a head and a half taller than the average Kzin.
And they're described as 8 feet of death already.
Lumbering hulks with claws out to there. You know how they are.
I was a little bit disappointed that they weren't on the cover.
It's about the Kzin Wars. It's like they're just like the next one in the war.
Yeah.
They're actually renowned diplomats because they insisted everybody talks in their language. And after a few weeks of that, most parties come to an agreement.
Oh, yeah.
So it works really well. Yeah,
the power of language, eh?
So the Kzinti decide to wage war on the Rattel.
Yeah.
They launched their first assault, which unfortunately, it was actually their alpine resort, basically, where they had the avalanche screens built up, and the Kzinti saw those, and they go like, oh, those are anti-tank walls. So we're not going to go through the easy pass, we're actually going across the mountain, which is not a very good place to go with armored personnel carriers and treaded vehicles. So
certainly if they're literally fashioned out of garbage.
Yes, unfortunately that didn't work very well. So the second attack that the Kzin launched was, unfortunately, that was on their coastal defenses.
Ah, yes.
Which turned out to be a breakwater. But again, like your landing vehicles, if they're fashioned out of garbage and other people's leftovers, they didn't really survive. I mean, it was a particularly nasty bit of beach which caused those boats to be swept back, and many Kzin drowned in the assault on the beach.
Yeah, so at this point, like, the Rattel had a bit of a discovery, and I as a reader had a bit of a discovery as well. My discovery was that this is not some fortress planet. This is a holiday planet. This is a holiday resort.
It's where they keep their lovely gardens. The next thing that the Kzinti was got all focused on was the main capital of Badgerton, which was defended by a vast network of trenches, which was actually ha-has, which were like keeping the landscape.
What is a... I mean, obviously I know, but can you explain for the readers at home what a ha-ha is?
Okay, so a ha-ha is a landscape feature.
Yeah.
It's a ditch on one side, which is turfed in.
Yeah.
And then a steep wall on the other side. And it's placed in such a way that from the main house, you can't see this ditch. It's to keep grazing sheep and cows out of the gardens.
Huh.
So it's basically a gate or a fence. Yeah. But done in a way that you can't see it from the important part of the house.
That's
Although
clever.
In Australia, they also used it at asylums.
Oh dear.
So yeah, the people inside could still look out as long as they didn't walk into the trench.
So the wall was facing the inside, where the viewer sees just a little hill.
Exactly.
And doesn't see that there's the tiger-filled moat on the other side.
Yeah.
No, okay, that I'm sure that was a problem for our Kzinti. I sort of felt sorry for the Rattel at this point, who
had no idea what was going on.
After they noticed a few of these savage attacks, which they first attributed to really unfortunate accidents due to a lack of coordination, but they started to come to the belief that the Kzinti were a sort of suicide cult.
Yes,
coming to massively suicide themselves against their holiday planet.
I mean, at first they saw the Kzinti coming. They started a little welcoming party, but unfortunately, the attack ran afoul whatever the defensive system was that.
The fireworks that they set off turned out to be like just enough to take out the Kzinti aircraft, which were not prepared for any turbulence whatsoever. They were like the great Swedish warship Vasa, which was finally put to water after a decade of construction in the 17th century, and the lightest breeze
as it caught a crosswind, it was like poof.
Yep.
So the Rattel sent Chief Diplomat Puffelhuff out to...
yes. They figure that she should be able to relate to these cat-like aliens, and at least, like... Do you want assisted suicide because that can be talked about, or do you like... Are you protesting something that we don't know about?
Have we done anything wrong? It's like we'd like to work with you. And
so this was the sort of unfortunate timing. So the chief diplomat, Puffelhuff, she visits the Kzinti homeworld. Obviously, her craft, a light pleasure craft, is entirely impervious to all the Kzinti weaponry. And she makes it to the Kzinreti high exasperation, where these supremely overworked women are like, oh, fuck. Oh, yes, there was a war going on. I'm so sorry. Shit. What's happening? Fuck. Okay, so piece of quartz. Let's do it quickly. Put that down. Desperately trying to put together a piece of quartz and producing a document of surrender. I mean, they have a lot of them just lying around just in case there was another war. But unfortunately, the declaration of war had not reached the Kzin home yet. But the unfortunate piece of timing is that just around this time, a decade into the war, Earth had finally joined the fray. Like they've recognized that their allies are at it again, and it's not going well. And you know what? Let's roll. It's kind of the joint screed of the Kzin and humans. Like, okay, you still haven't won. You still haven't given up. Fine. Okay, let's do this.
Okay.
Let's do this. We're in it. We're in it together.
We'll go for it.
Which was solidified in the sort of political marriage between two princes. The Kzin have their own royalty, and the next in line for his house, a dreamer of fish, was you know how they have to earn their names until they do a great deed, and before that they're named after like their occupation. And in his case, well, didn't really have a lot to do, so he just dreams of fish all day.
I mean, that's nice.
I know. And his husband, I mean, both of them were quite reluctant about this marriage.
Must have been quite the wedding night.
Louis II, definitely. Louis II, from a human influencer dynasty, who worked as a freelance political prostitute. So he'd been through a few of these marriages and engagements before, so
is that
he
how
knew.
It went? I was curious about that.
But he sort of found himself appreciating a dreamer of fish's company a lot more than he had his previous husbands and wives and spices.
He was easy to please.
Certainly, like the old scritch and belly rub work. But he also couldn't really like put his finger on why he just enjoyed being around dreamer of fish. Maybe it was the sincerity. Maybe it was he's a big hunky cat man.
Yes,
but
maybe the purring at night.
Yeah.
Must be nice to be able to like curl up to an 8-foot cat at night and just like listen to them purr and then fall asleep to that.
All right, so if I'm going to change my name, it's not going to be to Cack in mayorhood. It's going to be Dreamer of Catmen.
Okay, that seems about right.
That seems like that's what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the day. But our heroes, who the Kzinti exasperation hoped would deliver the documents of surrender, were not actually informed what was in them, and Louis II can't read Kzin, and Dreamer of Fish can't read at all. So and they think that they have secret orders to infiltrate and defeat this enemy from within.
Yes, so they know they're being sent to the town of Badsetshire, which is the home of
Badsetshire.
Badsetshire. It's terrible to pronounce. Which is the home of Prime Minister Hashti Egg.
Yes, and it's also an old Chinese poem about the stone-eating poet in the lion-eating poet in the stone den. Yeah,
sure. Yes.
No, sorry, that was sure. So they think they have secret orders to assassinate
the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister Hashti Egg. Yes, that's right. So on one of the many garbage craft, our heroes streak through the skies of this holiday planet. Down they set in Badsetshire, blowing up their ship as a distraction, discarding all of their armor.
That's why they did
stealth nudity.
Right, yes, that's why they were like sneaking around through the underbrush.
Yeah, so this is one of those Kzinti things that for some reason Louis is just completely into now. Like he is just going along with it. He thinks it's the bee's knees. Yeah, drop our weapons. Yeah, fine. Blow up our ship. Fuck,
well, he's not dropping his weapons.
Let's
That's
roll.
very clear on the front cover that he's definitely not dropping the weapons.
Well, no, not
he's
once
sticking to his gun, so to say.
Not once he's picked them up, because that's their thing. You want to jump sort of naked into the fray and then just use whatever's lying around.
Right, grab the nearest weapon that was tributed to you by the enemy, and
so they find some lockers where there's an abandoned set of gravity pumps, which is kind of cool because now he can walk on walls.
Yes,
and
which is very useful if you're trying to get out of a ha-ha.
Yes, that's how they're able to overcome that. I mean, obviously, a dreamer has his claws, but
also he's tall enough to just look over it and hoist himself up.
But yes, no, I thought it came together very well. Good job, writers of this book, that they use the gravity pumps to get out of the ha-ha. And with this weapon that they've seized, that they don't quite know how it works, they enter Badsetshire. So they've each got one weapon, and the big gun goes with the human because he can aim quite well. And the sort of
the Kzin prefer them swords and the other things as well.
I mean,
anyway.
it looks sharper than it's described as. Like it's much more in the book. It's described as much more rounded and like warm to the touch, and has a knob that makes it vibrate. And he thought, vibroblade, but no, it's really
much
just
vibro,
kind of
not much blade.
Yeah,
see, that explains that little protrusion that I'm seeing
That's
on the top
one.
again. Yes,
that's the one, because what they've
traditionally dolphin shaped, if I'm not mistaken.
Because what they've gone ahead and done is they've stolen some Rattel sex toys,
yes,
including specifically like this is a sex gun that he has. So they think they're actually doing really well.
It's kind of like the Orgasmatron.
That's literally what happens. They just pamp, which is the noise the Orgasmatron makes, yes. Dropping Ratels left and right who writhe in...
Quiver in pleasure.
So, this brings us to where we see our heroes on the cover. They've just burst into the main council chambers, taking this stance known as the Spartan phalanx, where they're sort of mounting each other. Yeah, it's
sexy pose.
It's a very sexy pose, and your time has come. And Dreamer is so delighted that they're outnumbered 20-1, because that means this is going to be a good one.
Glorious fight. Target-rich environment, yes.
Yes, that's a lovely euphemism. A target-rich environment. But they were not prepared for like a standing round of ovation. So they're sort of bewildered, but in this extremely reasonable language of the Badger, the Ratels explain that no one in this holiday planet has ever had as good a time. The speed at which they made it through the complex
was amazing. Yes.
People jizzing left and right. It was fantastic. Their congratulations and jubilation become more and more enthusiastic, and it sort of reminded me of how Louis behaved around Dreamer, because this is where we realize some of the effects that you get from just being around them from their biology. Because the various pleasurable like secretions of their body, which is I mean, a lot of species use like hormones to alter their own moods, or pheromones to alter other members of their mood, and they have this sort of combined by exuding their own pheromones to hype themselves up, which the males are so hyped up. Starting with like the principal organ for this is of course their speed balls.
Wow, yes. I mean, that usually works well if you want to going into combat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But like even without the influence of their speed balls, they're just covered in heroin.
Wow.
Yeah, and if they feel like mellowing down, they can just have a little suckle on their naludes.
Yeah, although you do have to be careful, because like a lot of people are allergic to Kzinti heroin.
But even they can enjoy a little slurp of cocaine.
I think that was Louis's favorite.
Well, followed secondly by crack cocaine, which is also a fun one.
If it's your thing, then yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and you get a double hit of Ascalin while you're down there.
Yes, well.
And if he returns the favor, maybe you get some salvia. Some salvia.
Yes, well, they say that cats are clean, but they're not. They're covered in cat spit.
Yes, that's right.
Or in this case, salvia divinorum.
Yes, exactly. And when you're posturing in the Spartan phalanx, you get really doused with their amphetamine and legstasy.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So immediately, Dreamer of Fish is surrounded by fans interested in snorting and rubbing and licking his wonderful body.
He thinks he's like they're being hailed as victors. And,
yes,
getting the respect that they own. Yeah. And they, of course, I mean, that's what the Ratel do. Have a big party with them. Especially
passing him around like a drug ball.
Oh,
he's absolutely loving it.
He's being petted and he's being loved and he's being, like, intimately pleasured in interesting ways.
The doors are opened to the rest of the Kzinti. They are invited inside. Please arm yourselves with these vibrating dildos.
And have some fun on our home planet.
Draining the Kzin home of 91% of its males, to the great relief of the crypto matriarchy.
Oh, yeah, the exasperation.
Yeah.
The Man Kzin War, it took 11 tries, but they got themselves a victory.
Of a sort. And once again, like, the population has been drained a little bit, and civilization can move forward. And the excess males are having a great time being passed around as little party favors.
Yeah, they become, like, domesticated almost. I mean, they think that they're just being, like, worshipped and, like, getting the tribute and the respect that they deserve. And, in fact, they're just being kept as glorified house pets and drug balls.
Exactly.
So it's, I guess everybody wins. And
exactly, it's a weird thing to say, but everybody wins. So I thought it's a little bit of a weird one. I don't know about...
I like it's a surprise twist ending, basically. I like how that came through.
But yeah, I thought it was a very good book. I think the authors, Hal Colbatch and Matthew Joseph Harrington and Larry Niven, all did a great job, and I'm very excited for some of the other fucking 915 Man Kzin Wars books. So hey, maybe we'll hold another one of these elections
and see what else can come up, which should be reviewed by us.
Thank you to all of those who cast their vote. I think we'll be doing this again. I had such a good time with the Man Kzin Wars.
We can have a retry, and like I said, there were some covers among the other ones which I would definitely love to review.
So maybe that'll come up next time. But in the meantime, how are we going to rate this book?
Well, we did already out of 9 very recently, so we can't do that one again.
And several times before, because we keep coming back to sexy space cats from space.
Right. Drugs.
Drugs for 20.
Drugs for 20.
420. 420 is the drugs number.
Yes, it is indeed.
Because when a when a Kzinti cuts himself and then he heals, he's often like you can snort the remaining tissue for the scarijuana.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
I'm glad that one only ended up in a footnote.
Yeah, exactly. So out of 420, how will you rate this book?
I will give it 399 out of 420.
Wow, the ratio keeps eking up, doesn't it?
A good book. I won't give it a full 400.
Well, maybe one day, but in the meantime...
It was clearly a sequel.
Well, yeah, but we haven't done any of the other ones.
Well,
that's never stopped us before.
No, absolutely not. But, it's still a book, and it's like...
It's definitely still a book.
They were milking it.
So even when you... Like, just to be clear, these are all your criticisms. It was an unnecessary sequel. They were milking it. It's just a book. And you still gave it 399 out of 420. Read. No, okay. Yeah. I'm just looking at this nearly, like, exponential scale that you're using. No, I'll figure it out one of these days.
Okay.
Speaking of reviews, if you look down at your podcasting device, you should be seeing some opportunity to leave a little review and let us know what you thought. We'd love to hear from you on... I'm going to do it right this time. Okay, believe in me.
I believe in you.
Cover My Asscast on Twitter. You can find us on Twitter at Cover My Asscast, or on email, or by email, God Christ, at covermyasscast@gmail.com. It's the @ They both have an @ On Twitter, you have an @ Cover My Asscast, and then that's what's so difficult.
Email, it's in the middle, yes.
So please tell me how to do these little promo spots better. Please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And in the meantime, what do we have in store for our readers next week?
Next week's book is by no other than Carrie Fisher.
Whoa!
It's called Wishful Drinking.
That about covers it. Thank you for joining us at Cover My Ass, where baffling books are reviewed but not read by yours truly. My name is Kaki.
And I'm Kay. And remember,
we only judge a book by its cover. Wishful drinking. Oh, what an idol. When I grow up, I want to be just like her.
Take it too soon for us.
Drowned in moonlight, strangled in her own bra.
That's how she
May the
went.
force be with you, Carrie.